Hey everyone, this is Arabella, owner and founder of AVS, a boutique vocal studio in Boston, as well as the owner and founder for Piano for the Vocalist, sponsors of today's episode. I'm pleased to welcome our guest speaker today, Kamillah Collins. I had the pleasure of learning with Kamillah at an ad agency in New York as we both interned there. Since then, I've had the opportunity to learn from her, as I called upon Kamillah as I launched the studios and some of the other brand work that I've done. And as she dived deeper into the ad agency world, specifically strategy, she has been instrumental in helping us grow to the point that we're at now. Today, we're going to talk about what is strategy, but more importantly, how does it relate to you as an artist? I'm excited to get started, and thank you so much, Kamillah, for joining us today. We interned together at BBDO, which is an ad agency for our listeners and viewers who are unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And when we started, we were both working in what they called the creative side of it. Now, I put creative in quotes because Kamillah had a discovery during that time that I'd love to speak a little bit to, because I think it's such an important one.
Yeah, definitely.
And that is Kamillah moved to strategy because she saw a lot of the creativity actually in the strategy. So I'm going to stop talking and just hand it to you.
Yeah. So like Arabella was saying, I started off in creative. I think when you hear about advertising, you think about Mad Men, and just if you think about like textbook definition, what is advertising? You're thinking about the glitzy, glamorous stuff that you see creatives make. And you see like that, their output, commercials, posters, all that kind of stuff, activations, all that jazz. And I was like, oh, well, I want to do that because I like writing and I like storytelling. So I was like, okay, well, that should be, I think, A squared plus B squared. I guess I should be a copywriter. And when I got there, I was like, okay, I like it. I'm not having a bad time. I like it. But after a while, and we had like our summer internship project, and we got to meet like all the interns that we've basically been working with all summer, but across different departments. And the people on my team, they were really great. And I just thought the strategy interns were really cool. And I was like, strategy, what is that? So I literally just started sitting down like at their floor more and more often and just started talking to more people. We used to have like this website where you could literally like find people's like name, number, and their title. So I was like, okay, where are all the strategists? Who looks the nicest? That's literally what I went off of, which is silly, but it worked. Who looks the nicest and most approachable and would probably want to talk to an intern? Yeah, that's really where it started. Just trying to reach out and talk to people.
I love that. Already going back to some concepts that we've talked about in last podcast episodes, finding your allies, doing your networking. So we'll circle back to all of that. But I'm curious, what is your definition of strategy?
I think that strategy in general, you're going to hear people say like it's an informed opinion on how to win. But I think that really strategy is essentially a plan or a launch pad to get to your goal. Like you have something that you want to do in the world. Like, okay, I want to be a singer, for example. I can't just like go out and book a performance without any level of plan or like process or reasoning behind why people should even care about me or like listen to me and my voice. So I think that strategy is like a really good why or reasoning behind what you want to do and how you want to get it done.
I couldn't agree more with that. And for our listeners and viewers, I'd like to sort of wrap it all together here and say, you might be listening to this and say, ad agency, strategy, wait, I thought we were talking about singing piano music. What's going on? But the thing is, you can't really do art without having a strategy. You can, even when you sit down to brainstorm and let things kind of flow, at its essence, that is your strategy, right? To sit down and I like to say ideate.
Yeah.
So I think we get into this almost bad habit as artists of saying, well, I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do my art. And what I liked about the ad agency world, and part of the reason why I wanted to have you on, is the ad agency sphere is one of the only places I think said, wait, no, we're artists, we're creatives, but
Yeah.
we're gonna sell something.
Yeah.
And that's really unique.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's, to your point, a lot of people often think like strategy and creativity are two separate things, but I to your point think that strategy is just a form of creativity. Like, this is so silly, but this is the only analogy I have. I treat like strategy like the skeleton. It's just a structure holding things together. Like in the body, without it, like it can be there. It'll be there, but it's kind of all over the place, and it's just like it's all over, doing just on the floor. I'm assuming. I don't know. But your skeleton is what gives you structure and gives you like form and shape, and like, oh, okay, this does this. This is for that, and we're a part of this one whole system. So.
Here's the other thing I see though. We tend, and myself included, we either go in and say, I have a $0 budget,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm just going to start creating because it's what I know how to do. Or we say, let's go all in and hire a professional, maybe an ad agency. But I think even more common for the music world is to hire someone to do like Google ads or a social campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you're on these calls where they're like, so minimum you're investing 800 to a grand a month. What do you think? Do you think you could push it a little bit more, a little bit higher? And you're like, oh, wait.
That's a lot.
Wait,
Hold
yeah,
on.
I
Yeah,
started
yeah.
with zero.
Yeah,
I told
right,
you I had a
right.
$0 budget. How
Yeah.
did we get here? So my question to you is $0 budget.
Mhm.
How do I start strategizing?
Yeah, I think I hear you, especially being a creative person. It's natural. You want to just keep doing what feels good and feels natural to you and just start riffing and flowing on all that kind of stuff. I think it could be useful. And this is like a basic, these are like structures that you can find on Google, but I think just a simple like messaging or branding framework can help you understand and like it'll essentially like help you with your elevator pitch, I think. So that way, because these ads and Google ads that you want to use to promote yourself, they're all just mini pitches, basically, right? That you're just putting out into the world. Doing your strategy before you get a chance to create or develop that message can help make it sharper and also faster to say and like riddle off in the world once you have that framework of what you want to say, what you're trying to do in terms of like your vision, what you want, like what you want your message or mission to be, and what you stand for. Getting those three things locked in, I think is a good base to help with the creating with no money. Just getting that core understood.
Yeah, and I want to clarify too something I said. I said $0 budget because I think honestly that's where most of us start.
Yeah.
But that is not to suggest you shouldn't invest.
Oh,
At
right.
some point,
Yeah.
investing for profit makes sense.
Absolutely.
But starting from step one, I
Yeah.
think that's a really good thought. What is your elevator pitch? Or sometimes we call it unique selling point.
Yeah.
I think a problem that we run into a lot is we say, well, I just sing. I
Yeah.
just play piano. What's unique about that? What's my
Right.
unique selling point? And what I've kind of found when people ask me for help with that is I say, I'm here to help frame that for you.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to know that better than me.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious your thoughts because part of the role of strategy is to kind of help frame that for people. Where do you start with that? There's so many frameworks out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to the case that you're speaking of, I think is really interesting in terms of a person, like what makes me stand out if we're all trying to do the same thing. And you're automatically going to stand out because it's you and you're not the other person. And that's simple, but it's something easy. Like I see why it goes over everyone's head. Like, oh, like what makes me so different? you're different because you're you. That's like the first thing. Um, but honestly, one thing that helps me is to look at the competition and to see, because to that point, yes, everybody's doing this thing. So everybody's talking about it and trying to articulate their flavor and their style, like sauce and style on it. So if I see everybody's talking about, yeah, we all sell chocolate chip cookies and we use this best kind of flour and the best type of chocolate from this part of the world, whatever, maybe I need to talk about something else. Like maybe I need to talk about why I started baking. Maybe I need to talk about my baking process or like the oven that I use. You just need to find your angle because there is an angle. It just might not seem like it right away.
Mm. And if I could give a piece of advice too, it would be just start talking,
Yeah.
from a knowledgeable place, but
Yeah.
start talking. I started during COVID giving lessons online. So I think originally the platform that we were going with was separate but together,
Mm.
because we were connecting through things like Zoom. But it wasn't very long lasting because thankfully, eventually we went back to more of a
Yeah.
normal
Right.
thing,
Yeah.
right? A normal world setup, which I'm very grateful for because for many reasons. But for the business in particular, I get to go back in person and meet all these people in a different capacity. But I was like, oh no, the thing that I had been using isn't working anymore.
Mm.
And it took about 5 years, I would
Yeah.
say, to get to a point where I found the new thing. But the thing that stuck was me,
Yeah.
my values, what I was
Exactly.
bringing to the table, my ability. And even when I brought on team, they weren't me. It was a different person, different value set that they brought to the table, but we still met on this common idea of what we were offering and why we were offering
Yeah.
it. So
Totally. Yeah. I hear that.
this episode is sponsored by AVS. Together, we are redefining what it means to be a musical community. Rather than a single central studio, our presence is woven into the fabric of our city. You'll find us in boutique practice rooms strategically placed at the heart of the action from Rock City, Alston to across from the Symphony in Back Bay. We gather in local pubs, breweries, at local open mics, channeling our resources into getting singers out of the practice room and onto stages in the greater Boston area. So, with that, let's talk a little bit, though, about like a smaller individual versus team or a big company.
Mhm.
Do you think strategy shifts how you think about it?
I guess the only difference I'm thinking about right now is like when I'm thinking about like your personal brand versus like out there kind of commercial brands, those are brands that just have a lot more like red tape and like just messiness and in terms like legal and just a lot more complexity where your personal brand can really like adapt and change and like develop with you, and it's just all about how you shape it and display it to the world, right? Like you can change it as much as you want and no one's gonna like fire you because you're not beating the ROI or whatever. Like it's fine. Lower stakes.
I love that because
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we get caught in, well, this is nice. Google's doing X, Johnson and Johnson's doing X, and I'm just picking brand names
Yeah.
here, right? T-Mobile, whatever you want to pick.
Right.
But like they're huge, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to sell out a bar in Boston or
Yeah.
a pub in Boston. But I think that to your point, like in some ways, we have a lot more freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that big brands always can get stuck with is the routine that they've already set in place. Like, oh, well, we can't change this because of X, Y, and Z thing that's already been set in place before it. And I think as people and this like personal brand builder, whatever, sometimes we can feel like that too. Like, oh, well, I've already been telling people this thing. I've already been saying it this sort of way. I already established my values as this. Hey, you're not gonna get fired again. You're not. No one's gonna fire you. It's fine. You can really change it and adjust it so that way. So that way you can really resonate with your audience and find your people. You know.
Right. No, totally. I want to sort of define some of these things for our listeners
Okay.
because I made the assumption, and maybe some of our listeners do and some of them don't, that when I say competitor scan or values, the why, those are very buzzwordy.
Mm-hmm.
Can we take a moment and just define some of the key concepts that are important?
Sure.
If someone said to you, I want to strategize for myself, like I am an artist and I know I want to go from X to Y, what are some of the things you say, start here and this is what that means?
Yeah. Um, I think my first question would probably be, how much time do you have? That's the first one, because if you have a certain goal in mind and you have a show that you're trying to hit in 2 weeks, that's going to be a very different conversation versus I I want to change the genre that I sing in. Like that, those are just different conversations that require different kinds of time and put you under a different pressure time-wise as well, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. Um, so that would probably be my first thing.
And so the takeaway I have there is sometimes red tape gets in the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's there as guardrails.
Right.
And time is the most valuable asset you have, in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Yeah.
So those guardrails are really important.
Yeah.
Let's give a fake example here, a hypothetical. I am an artist. I decided to take lessons for, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks, 2 months before my gig.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, my goal is to get my name out there. I want people to know that I'm singing.
Okay. So we need reach and we probably need a lot of awareness. So these are terms, if you hire somebody or do Google on like how to go viral, whatever, you're probably going to see those two terms pop up. Awareness is literally, it translates to how many people are aware of you in terms of what they're seeing. Like if they see you on their timeline, like in a video, the amount of people who saw that, that is a part of your awareness that can come in your views, in term of views, definitely likes, impressions. You'll see how many people actually like their eyes were on you. That's awareness. Your reach is like how many people maybe they saw it and they just scrolled right past it, or it was just, quick little thing, but it was still something that was in their zeitgeist, in their awareness, just maybe not necessarily something they laid eyes on for a long time, but it was something that still was able to get to them.
Okay, and this is really important if you're listening here, especially for digital strategy,
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah.
We, in today's market, I feel like they're becoming less and less separate. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what the opposite would be called. Like a more on the boots on the ground strategy versus a digital space. Maybe
Yeah.
you have better words for that.
I mean, I think digital is probably the best for this conversation because the other way would be branding, but that's kind of more of what I was saying earlier in terms of what are you here to say? Why do you want to say it? And what do you stand for kind of thing? That's like brand strategy kind of stuff. And digital, to your point, is like those placements on social websites, all that kind of jazz. Another form of strategy that I think we're talking about more so right now is comms. Like that's all about communication, and that could be what they're seeing in person, that could be what they're seeing online, it could be what they're seeing like talking to you via email. Like it delineates a couple different ways.
Yeah, so I want to encourage our listeners here. don't get caught in the hypotheticals that I'm giving. I'm using them as an example. Take the overarching strategy.
Yeah.
take the overarching thoughts here
Yeah.
and then say, what am I doing? What do I want to do? Because I'm going to give an example here where I went against advice. And if you're listening to this and you were the one to give me advice, I respect you and I thank you for giving me this to think about. It let me go in the other direction.
Sometimes
but
that's what advice is
so,
for, to
yes.
reject.
So one strategy I think artists hear a lot is a triangle approach between Google My Business, Google Maps, and Google Ads. And the advice I was given is don't worry about branding until you have that triangle under control.
Oh, wow.
And yeah,
that's interesting. Really?
That's just, yes, I think, let's come back to that.
Okay.
So I think because I knew more with what I was doing with the thing I'm about to say,
Okay.
I said, I got my Google My Business under control.
Yeah.
I got my Google Maps under control. I have not pressed go on Google Ads. I have never run a Google ad. I have it up.
Yeah.
It's made. I've never pressed go.
Okay.
And instead, I took the same buy and I invested in branding because I felt like we are more reliant on social media than ever, and Google's algorithm was changing to such a point. When we were about to launch, I was like, we have no idea what the outcome is. I think Google used to be a lot more predictable as a strategy. And I'm not saying don't do it. If you have a good team and you know what you're doing, go for it. I'm not commenting on that.
Right.
But what I did is I hired an artist and I said, these are our brand guidelines. Make us, please, like a few templates so that I can hand it off to someone on team. And no matter what message we put out, our why, our values are strong.
Yeah.
And then when we see what's doing well organically on social, we're going to use that as a social ad. So that's something we're still monitoring. But where everyone said, this strategy is working. And I said, yeah, but I don't know how to do that. I need further research.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious your thoughts on that. Not to put you on the spot.
No,
but
I think that's such an interesting case study for strategy, honestly, because what you're doing is a form of strategy and strategic thinking in terms of like testing what works, like A/B testing, like in terms of, okay, you have a lot of different spots that you're looking at with different types of brand guidelines and you're trying to see what resonates and what works for the audience. Brands do that all the time. Brands are showing us different things, having people try different products in like different parts of the same city and seeing how they react, all a part of strategy. So it makes perfect sense to do it in terms of like personal brand. I think that's like one of the similarities between the two, like the ability to like test and explore and try things out. But one thing I thought was really interesting about what you were saying is you just decided to just go for it and just see. But that's a good thing that more brands can't do because there's risk involved in that. And it ultimately and thankfully it worked out for you. But like a brand would never just like go against all the advice that I've ever heard. Whoa, that's slap on the head for that. But when you're for your personal brand, it makes a lot of sense. And especially to your point, you notice what was happening in the market and culture currently versus like, I know that's the advice of the past. What's happening now is like the landscape is getting really faulty and you needed to find your audience and people that were going to resonate with you. And you did it in the way that made sense. And, it's working.
This episode is sponsored by Piano for the Vocalist. Piano for the Vocalist is your ultimate resource for unlocking the skills to self-accompany with confidence. This largely free program is focused on teaching singers to use collaborative piano techniques for vocal performance rather than traditional piano skills, empowering you to accompany yourself with ease. Yeah. And to bring it full circle, right? For that $0 budget, we said find your why
Yeah.
or find your elevator pitch. I'm making up numbers here. Like, I'm not saying at this level, go for it. Want to make that clear.
Yeah.
But say you're at the next level and that person comes to you and says, okay, invest $1,000, $2,000 into it. And you're playing with a little bit more than 0, right? Whatever that number is to you. And by the way, that number is going to look different if you're a solopreneur or if you have a team or if you're in a big business. So think percentage, not number, is my advice. But let's that's a side thought. Let's come back to that. The next step I'm hearing is know your audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And play a little bit with the strategy. You have some room there for exploration still at that level.
What I love about that is that you knew what you wanted to say and trusted your message enough to just put it out there. I mean, so when you use social predominantly in terms of finding the audience and stuff.
Yeah, we use social. I actually started on Thumbtack.
Okay, cool. Wait, what
Yeah.
is that?
Thumbtack is like an online, like an Upwork
Okay.
or a Fiverr for working with clients and contractors.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. That's
So
cool.
it was bigger during, I think, like 2020, 2021. I've
Yeah.
since moved off there, really. But that's how I started. And
Yeah.
so I just started with a simple, we had a Google Sheets doc.
Yeah.
And every time I had a sales call, I would say, I'm going to write some notes. And I wrote the name, and it just was simple. Did they book a lesson? Did they not book a lesson?
Yeah.
And then we had our data from there. And then I had an Instagram, and we didn't really have people booking through Instagram at that point. It was more organic reach.
Okay.
But you could see the analytics, and I could see if it was matching up with who was contacting us on Thumbtack.
Yeah, but that's awesome. Instead of using social, you use a platform that worked for exactly what you wanted because you were confident in what you wanted to say and how you needed to get out there to people. And a lot of strategy, honestly, is confidence and just like, nope, this is what it is and this is what I'm saying and no questions asked. Like, again, an informed opinion on how to win, but the information really needs to sound as confident as possible. So
Yep. And that information seeking, start at the $0 level.
yes.
Start with the Google Sheet.
Yeah.
And because it's only going to get, there's only more numbers as you go up in numbers. And that's why I say, too, this is a side thought, but looking at percentages, the percentage of reach, percentage of awareness, percentage of bookings, that I have found to be a more useful stat than the numbers itself. Because if you're a solopreneur and you're looking for lessons, you're probably top like 30 lessons.
Yeah.
Right. And but that number is going to be really small for a big studio that has 10 teachers on staff. And that number is going to be even smaller who has, a franchise of studios. So, and to bring it back to the artist level, a $5 buy-in for an ad strategy, and that's really low. Again, don't pay attention to the numbers, pay attention to the frameworks, but on Instagram is going to look really different for an individual than a $500 ad spend. So just a side thought there for whoever's watching. Okay, so we did 0 middle budget. How do you invest for profit? What do you strategize?
I mean, you definitely want to strategize so that way you can continue to make money. Okay.
Yes.
Like we have money right now. Great. Let's keep it. What do we do to help maintain this thing? I think there's a lot more exploration that you can do with a bigger budget. Like you can really test with a lot more people and get a lot more people to look and react to what you have to say. And you can keep ideating and keep reworking your messaging, reworking who you want to talk. There's just more room to keep testing and exploring how effective you want to be, basically.
And at that point, should we think about hiring a professional, or do you think about hiring a professional even earlier than that?
I think it's helpful to hire a professional for a couple different areas, not necessarily tied to budget, but more like just headspace or like business space, really. But if you know what you want to say, but you don't necessarily know how you want to say it, I think that could be a good time to hire help. If you want to change what you've been saying and you have no idea how your audience is going to react to that change, like, are they still going to like your brand? Are they still going to resonate with you? You might want to hire help because they can do some research on your audience and just say, like, hey, like, this is what they're feeling. This is what they're going through. They might react this way.
Great. I will share another story of
Yeah.
our original brand tagline was music is muscular. And for many, many years, the people who were helping me out said, we're really sorry. We know you love it, but it makes no sense. Your audience doesn't get it. And I
Yeah.
was like, but I get it.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. How do they not get this? And someone finally said, can you explain to me what that means in one sentence?
Yeah.
And I could not.
Yeah.
It still has meaning to me, and it actually became one of our brand values, and there's one sentence now attached to it. So
Yeah.
if you're looking for that explanation about the anatomy and physiology, it can now be found on our website. But it was just in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And someone had to say, is that really your why? Is that
Yeah.
really what you talk about when people come in for lessons? This is a great example where I needed some help. And I contacted Kamillah and said,
Yep.
I have to get rid of this now tagline that I've used for the last few years. I can't think of anything. Help me.
Yeah. So that's a good example. You just helped jog my memory on sometimes you need to simplify to your point. Because, and as a strategist, but creative first. And, you know, I think that strategists are creative. When you get into advertising, they just like to label things based on, like, I think on what people see. Pretty much like you're creative because everybody gets to see it and react to it. And it's very sexy and glamorous. Makes all the sense in the world. But sometimes you have like these phrases and these words and they like mean so much to you. And it's just like, no, everybody's going to love it. Everybody's totally going to understand. But there's a real meaning to what you're trying to say underneath that. And there's like a whole, to your point, a why behind that and a reasoning behind it. And sometimes strategists can help you just expose that and like, hey, let's dig a little deeper. Let's dig a little deeper. Like, what are we really trying to get to right here? It's like, okay, that's the strategy, that deeper point.
Let's bring it full circle.
Yeah.
Because you went from strategy back to creative.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
The difference in advertising, I think that creatives do more sexy. I think they do sexier work in terms of work that we see in the world. I think they sometimes get a little more pressure because it's so exposed. But in terms of what I do and the whole point of strategy in terms of our dynamic, we're supposed to be the launch pad for what they're creating. So we're telling them like, hey, here's what the product or service is, here's the audience, here's what's happening in their world. We need them to feel this or understand this about us based off of all of these things. I do think something that we have in common, I know that like I'm saying creative is sexier. I do think that strategy and creative are both have the responsibility of being simple and sexy. I think that's the job in advertising. Like we need to be simple and sexy. Like we need to be easy to understand, but people need to want to like look and pay attention to us. I think that strategy has more responsibility on being simple. And I think creatives have more responsibility on being sexy. But we're both, but I think some of us we need to be simple, help everybody understand and streamline the message, and then we need to get everybody to look and pay attention to what we have going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were to leave our listeners with one piece of really practical advice, if they identify more on the creative side, but know that they need a strategy, what is the thought that you're like, think about this as you go into tonight?
Yeah. Um, there isn't a right or wrong answer. It's not necessarily a yes or a no. It's about your most convincing argument on what you're trying to say. And honestly, the more support and vigor and just resonance you have for your argument, that's what you have, and that's your opinion to win with.
I could talk about this forever, but I want to be respectful of Camillah's time. And um, I just want to thank you for giving
Yeah,
some of those insights today. For our
yeah.
listeners, I will say again, our strategy would not exist in the way it does today without Camillah's help and her guidance on RY and getting it out there into the world. So thank you for many reasons. One
Yeah.
of them, simplifying our message
Very
and
happy to
sharing
help.
with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy to help. This is my first speaking thing, and I want to do more. So I'm excited to be here. Yeah.
Awesome. More to come.
Yes,
Thanks,
yes, yes. More
everybody,
to
and we'll
come.
see you next time.
Thank you.